I am just thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce to you the host for our event this afternoon. And I want to say thanks to each and every one of you for coming this afternoon. It's a delight to see such a great turnout, and hopefully you're going to learn a lot about how we can all be supportive of foster youth in helping them achieve their educational goals. And that's what our session is about this afternoon. So I would like to introduce to you and have you give a warm welcome to Mr. Colloquium Mao. Colloquium's got a pretty amazing story, and he really did all of the legwork on putting this thing together today. So I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob Teague, for that warm introduction. Good afternoon and welcome to the University of California, Berkeley School of Social Welfare Colloquium on Academic Achievement for Foster Youth and Assembly Bill 12. My name is Colloquium Mao, and I'm a current employee of the California Social Work Education Center, which is part of the School of Social Welfare. Aside from my work at CalSWAC, I serve on the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Commission at Alameda County. I am so pleased to be here today, and it's been a goal of mine not only to have this conversation with child welfare social workers and practitioners, but also professionals in the School of Journalism, the Haas School of Business, the Goldman School of Public Policy, and everyone who have a vast interest in the lives of youth who goes through the child welfare system in the state of California. Because this is not just only an issue, it is a human issue. And also we have some wonderful guests who are here with us today as well. I just want to mention them very quickly. First of all, the California Superior Court Judge and the presiding Juvenile Court Judge of Alameda County, the Honorable Judge Trina Thompson, is here. The interim dean of the School of Social Welfare here at the University of California, Berkeley, who will be speaking in a minute, and a huge supporter of foster youth, that's Dean Sam Davis. I understand that we have a member from the Honorable Assembly Member Jim Bill's office is here with us. Thank you for I see a colleague of mine on the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention, that's Commissioner Lois Brubeck. And many of you who are here today with us who care so deeply about this issue, give yourself a round of applause. Amongst many obstacles foster youth faces, and I know this all too well because I too faced these difficult challenges growing up in the foster care system. According to the statistics obtained by the Honoring Emancipating Youth, known as TASF, 46% of former foster youth complete high school, compared to 84% of the general population. 70% of teens who emancipate from the foster care system reports that they want to attend college, but less than 50% complete their high school graduation, and 10% of who graduate from high school enroll in college, and less than 1% graduate from college. So these are just some statistics to show you what the issues we're facing today. To give you an overview for today's program, you will be hearing two programs from two distinguished universities, a program here at UC Berkeley and another program at SF State. Both programs has been very instrumental in providing the lives, in helping the lives of former foster youth who are pursuing a college diploma in their field of interest. Next, we'll be going into a panel discussion about the outcomes of success stories of former foster youth, one who has graduated from college and another who is currently in college. Also, we will be explaining some statistics that are proven successful amongst our former foster youth in these academic institutions, and looking at ways how this new law, AB12, can help with providing more opportunities for former foster youth to attend college. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dean Davis.
So thank you all very much for coming. As your no doubt aware, the school has had a long and honored history on the issue of foster care youth and how to make systems that better support them. Professor Barrick in the back is one of the main movers of this for our school. My own interest in this is much more tangential. As some of you may know, I'm an architect. And my work with foster care is for emancipated foster care youth. I did a group home in Concord, and I've done some work for First Place for Youth in their drop-in center downtown. An organization, by the way, that was founded by 2 graduate students in the Goldman School of Public Policy as part of their work when they were students. I recently heard someone speak at a class here in the building, and he told his story, which I found both upsetting and inspiring. Upsetting because of what he had to endure, but inspiring because he did. From the class, I learned that he attributes much of his success to some of the systems that are in place and some of the social workers that helped him and believed in him. But my guess is that he's a pretty special person with incredible internal strength, and that it has much to do with it as any outside influences. So I want to thank Sophie for putting this together. I'm sad to say that he is a member of our family now, working for CalSWIP, and he's done a lot of work to bring us together. I want to thank him and all the panelists too. So.
Thank you, Dean Davis, for that introduction. I want to welcome now the program coordinator here at the University of California, Berkeley, Cal Independent Scholars Network. Deborah Martinez has been very instrumental in her work here at Berkeley. She's done a lot to help support former foster youth here at University of California, Berkeley. And I want to welcome Ms. Martinez, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to this incredible colloquium. I'm Deborah Lowe Martinez. I'm the program director of the Cal Independent Scholars Network. This is a program that became in existence in 2005, and we have Professor Jill Barrick to thank for a lot of the legwork in making this program happen. We are a comprehensive program that works with foster youth that have recently emancipated from care. When I started in May of 2007, there were 13 students in the program. We now have over 60 students, and I'm really proud of that. Of our students, about 70% are former foster youth. The other cohort of students is that we work with students that are coming to the university as orphans. We offer a comprehensive program that also includes mentorship from the time the students arrive. We monitor grades. We have books and supplies. We're a community building organization. We have academic and enrichment workshops throughout the year. We really help the students and help supply everything that they need to be a successful student here. Our success rates with our students is high. Our retention rates are somewhere between 95 to 96%, which is really great. Each year we welcome a new cohort of students, and we work really closely with the financial aid office and the admissions office to identify students that are eligible for the program. I cannot underscore the importance of foster youth self-identifying in their FAFSAs and in their admissions material, because that's the only way that we can identify who you are and to offer you just really, really crucial services. Thank you. I hope you learn a lot. Shanita is one of our students in the Cal Independent Scholars Network. There's some brochures in the back, and you know, we look forward to supporting the foster youth that come into Cal.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, I want to introduce a person that's been very dear to my heart, and a person that's very has been very helpful and really touched my heart when I entered San Francisco State University really 5 years ago in 2005, and when the first cohort to go through this program, Garnet Scholars Program at San Francisco State. And I remember a time when I arrived on campus, and there she was. You know, I was emancipating out of care. You can imagine how hard that is. You know, getting no support from the state and being sent off on your own to this big university. And there she was. She was standing there with open arms. She helped me unload my stuff. And she, to this day, we still keep in contact, and I still keep in contact with the program. So that person is Xochitl Sanchez-Sarama, the program director at SF State.
Thanks, Socom. Yeah, Socom, you've touched my life in so many ways. Good afternoon, my name is Xochitl Sanchez-Sarama, and thank you for having me here. It's wonderful to see the turnout. I remember when Socom was first starting to talk about how are we going to bring together, you know, moving from San Francisco State and coming over to UC Berkeley and really learning and growing as a professional. Our program at San Francisco State, too, like Deborah, here at the CISN, was started in 2005, and with my co-founder, Dr. Sonia Lenderseed, who you will speak with later. We started the program really to do the best that we can, so that when Socom says to make this big place actually manageable, how could we support our students that are coming in from care, what types of services are needed, what types of services are already on campus. And so that's what we did. We worked with the network in our community, working with other programs. We are now almost 18 wide in terms of a Northern California University consortium. We work very closely with each other to provide services. I see a lot of my colleagues here who are also running East Bay, up and down the state. So it's really been a statewide movement to make sure that we are doing what we need to do as professionals and as advocates to improve the lives of students who are coming out of the foster care system. And then when they reach higher ed, making sure that they graduate. So we too are proud of our graduates. We are 86% graduation rate. When we started, it did not look like that. But now our students are in the professional fields, and you as students here are making a tremendous impact on role models for them. And our students who are, Barbara is one of our graduates, and she is well on her way to wanting to be, she shared with me today that she also wants to be in the social work department. So it's a modeling, and it's a lot of what we do at our campus at San Francisco State. But I really just want to say thank you for being here, and look forward to hearing from our panelists.
So we're going to go into our panel discussion portion of our event. I want to introduce the person who is moderating this discussion. He's the founder and principal of Foster Media Connection. Foster Media Connections really highlights the important stories, the success stories of foster youth who are in the system all across the nation. And he's been featured in Fox News and a lot of media outlets, and been to DC and the state capitol here in California. And he's done a lot of work helping out the foster care system. I thank him so much. Me and him has been working together in the past when I was at the Stewart Foundation in DC and Baltimore. So we had some great opportunities to really create a change in the foster care system in the nation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Daniel Heifel.
Thank you, Socom and everybody else. It's amazing that, I mean, this is crazy. You know, when I met Socom, he had long hair, and I went to, you know, San Francisco State College, the Guardian Scholars Program. I didn't know that much about this movement that we're talking about, this movement that's embodied in Barbara and Shanita and Socom and Lily and Jatane and Kevin and countless young people who have come up through the system in California and who are now poised to really take leadership positions. I mean, it is, if the word of the day is inequality, and you want to talk about people finding equity where you don't think you could find it, that's these young people. So I think it's a pretty incredible testament to what is possible, and I've been lucky enough to travel the country, travel the state, and kind of document this stuff. We have Ryan Blackshear here with us. Ryan just joined the Fostering Media Connections team as our new multimedia journalist, so we're happy to have it, Ryan. Well, you know, I want to get us quickly to a place where we can start talking about where we're at. And I think it's important as we talk about post-secondary education here in California and the opportunities that are around, it's important to talk about the groundwork that was laid in state-level policy and how that has started to build the framework for a continuum to post-secondary success that doesn't necessarily exist anywhere else, or to the degree that it does here in California. So in the 1970s, some smart people in the state legislature in the 1970s started thinking about something called foster youth services, which started out as a pilot program in Sacramento, in a couple districts and counties in Sacramento. The history gets a little bit fuzzy for me when I go back to 1970. But this was basically the Department of Education now taking a look and providing liaisons to ensure that children in foster care were getting what they needed as students in the public education system. In 1981, I believe that goes statewide. So you have foster youth services statewide now. In every county office of education, you have liaisons trying their best, you know, going through the muddle of a school system that, you know, we probably don't focus enough resources on, a foster care system that tries to do its best with social workers like the ones who will enter the working world here, who are going to fight kind of insurmountable battles, Sisyphean battles, to make sure things work out when things are not that easy, that are very difficult. And that was across the state. Now this is way ahead of the way departments of education around the country are dealing with children in foster care. So you start seeing the kind of framework towards educational stability in K through 12 education, which maybe, hopefully could, and you know, these are difficult things to accomplish, which doesn't make any sense, but which could get us on the road to having the outcomes that Xochi and Deborah are seeing all the time. That students in the Guardian Scholars Program in San Francisco, California, I believe this is accurate, are having higher retention rates than your average college student in America. I mean, you're talking about kind of mind-boggling comparative analysis. It's crazy, and that's possible, but that was because you started having this systemic focus on supports through K through 12. In 2003, you had AB12, which now allows students like Socom, who is at Oakland High School, gets moved to a group home in Hayward, allows him to stay in his school district in Oakland, graduate from Oakland High School, where he comes to the open arms of Xochi, and goes to the Guardian Scholars Program. So that was, again, prescient state-level law, which was then mirrored in federal foster care legislation. In 2008, the Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act, which had a bunch of provisions which we're going to get into, and that will form my segue to Angie, who's probably the smartest person on fostering connections in California that I know. But so you had AB 490, which talked about this double jurisdiction issue that then influenced an educational stability mandate in the Federal Fostering Connections to Success Act, which essentially said that child welfare administrations were compelled to keep children in their schools of origin, whenever in the best interest of the child. And if that child is moved, make sure they're enrolled in school. Okay, well that's kind of difficult because that puts it on social workers who are now under the huge burdens that they're under to also enroll a child in school and act the part of school administrator. So, so that was a blip in the law, and just last week, I'm happy to announce that in the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind, who knows where that's going to go. But there was an amendment by Senator Franken called the Fostering Success in Education Amendment, which put those same mirror mandates like AB12 has on the Department of Education on the federal level. So you have not only prescient state law in California driving children to great levels of success and putting them in a place where, through CYC or now the National Foster Youth Action Network, you have the possibility of a political movement driven by the strength of children in foster care. But also you see what happens in California, impelling federal level policy to foster kids in California, impelling federal level education policy. So that's a big deal. Back to 2008, the Fostering Connection to Success Act. That also had the most sexy provision, which was extending foster care to age 21. All of a sudden, the feds are going to offer up matching funds, and this was in the twilight of Bush's administration, before the economic woe made us think we can't invest in children anymore. We forgot about that one. And this law comes through and it provides federal funding to extend foster care to age 21. California, and we can go back to, there's a great story, but California, in the midst of the glowering clouds of economic woe, somehow, some way, the perfect storm, as Angie has told me before, or something akin to that, somehow, some way, this state, with 1/8 of the nation's foster youth, passed this seminal landmark law, and now foster care will presumably be extended to age 21. At this stage, I will hand it over to Angie Schwartz by way of introduction. Angie sits in the same incubator space that I do at a place called the Stewart Foundation, which is probably, a group of some of the smartest people in terms of how to use resources to help foster kids. And so I have this luckiness of being an incubee and incubaby there. And next to me is Angie Schwartz, who full-time focuses on AB12 implementation. So Angie, what's going on?
So, as Daniel just said, AB12 is California's Fostering Connections to Success Act, and it takes advantage of the federal law that was signed in 2008 that Daniel was just talking about, which was the Federal Fostering Connections to Success Act. What you know about that Federal Fostering Connections to Success Act is it gave states the option of extending care till 21. It did not require that states extend care till 21. And in fact, they could choose any age. They could choose 19, 20, or 21 to extend care. California has, for the moment, chosen age 20, and we put in statute that, subject to further legislative action, we will extend to 21 in 2014. So it's very exciting. We took the federal option. We were one of the first states to do it. It also included converting our current subsidized guardianship program into a now federally funded subsidized guardianship program as well, which gave us some of the resources to take advantage of the option to extend foster care to 21. Because we've been supporting youth in guardianships with state-only dollars. Now we're going to use federal dollars to support those youth. We can reinvest that savings into extending foster care until 21. And I'm here really to just talk mostly about that piece of AB12 that extends foster care until 21 and how California is really tackling the issue of extended foster care. Just a little background. Socom gave you a little bit of background about the outcomes, the poor outcomes, quite frankly, that youth aging out of foster care have faced in terms of incarceration, homelessness, unable to access education, really poor rates of graduation, not only of high school but of college as well. There are also, as Daniel mentioned, 60,000 children in foster care in California. We have the largest foster care population in the country. We have 5,000 young people aging out of foster care every year. And those two things combined really said, well, how could California not take advantage of the opportunity to extend care till 21. Here we have the federal government saying you can have federal dollars in order to support these young people. We have the most young people. So there was really no way that would be conscionable to not have taken up the option. But we also live in a state with a daunting fiscal crisis that you may have all heard of. And the fact that we have the largest population of foster youth means it also is going to cost California the most amount of money to extend care. So it really took a massive effort, a really committed group of co-sponsors in order to get AB12 passed. And I'm not really going to tell the story of passage of AB12, but I'll just mention that the AB12 co-sponsors included pretty much everyone from the child welfare community. The co-sponsors were the California Welfare Directors Association, which is the counties, the Administrative Office of the Courts, which is the judicial officers, the Children's Law Center of Los Angeles, which is also now the Children's Law Center of Sacramento, which is the minors' attorneys for all the children in foster care in LA and in Sacramento, SEIU, which is the union that represents the social workers, the John Berkeley Foundation, Youth Law Center, the Alliance for Children's Rights, and our organizations are advocacy organizations that work on behalf of children in foster care, and the California Youth Connection, which obviously is our state's organization that really empowers and gives youth a voice in Sacramento, foster youth a voice in Sacramento, and the Alliance for Child and Family Services, which represents the foster family agencies and the group home providers. So collectively, the people that were saying to the legislature, you've got to pass this bill, represented the judges, the counties, the social workers, the attorneys, the children, everyone. Everyone was on board with this policy. And we were all very committed to not just extending foster care till 21 and saying you can have 3 more years in care, but changing foster care for young adults so that youth that are turning 18 get to be young adults in foster care and have all of the same rights and responsibilities that all 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds need in order to really thrive, to make mistakes, to get in trouble, to leave the system and come back in and do it again and again and again, as many times as they want to get to make choices on their own behalf, to have a voice in where they live, to have a voice in what they do, to have a voice in where they go to school, to not have anyone telling them that you can't leave the house for the weekend without, checking in with someone or getting the permission of your social worker. All of those things that sort of govern foster care for minors that are under the age of 18 needed to change if we were really going to create a safety net that supported young people as young adults and sort of change the bargain with these young people that said, we want to work with you. We don't want to tell you what to do, we want to work with you, we want to empower you, we want to support you the way all young people need the support of a loving parent or a loving individual in those critical transition years. So what I'm really going to talk about is sort of our approach to rewriting and changing the rules of foster care as we've previously known it. And this is what we've been engaged in over this whole last year. So AB12 doesn't actually take effect until January 1st of 2012. We gave ourselves a little over a year to write all of the policies. We wrote 200 pages of statute. So we started with 200 pages of statutory rules, which is now 315 pages or so because we had 100 pages of cleanup legislation because there were about 100 pages of things we didn't get right the first time around that we wanted to tweak. But from all of those statutory changes, you have to have all the policies and all the forms and all of the procedures that are actually going to say how do you take those rules and translate them into what's going to be practiced at the local level. So we spent the last year in a whole bunch of working groups trying to figure out exactly what those new rules are going to be. And we started the whole process with a poster. We started the whole process by sitting down and saying, what are our core values as we go through this process? What's going to guide us in AB12 implementation? And what do we need to keep in mind the whole time that we're doing this? And you can look at this, but basically it's that we wanted to make sure that the voices of young adults are part of the process, that we partner and assist young adults, so it's much more of a mentoring relationship, not sort of that prescriptive relationship that really governs foster care before 18. Everyone needs someone, love and belonging, really supporting permanent connections and paying attention to continuing to facilitate permanent connections for these young people, recognizing that every adult is unique. They're going to have different needs, different experiences, different values that they bring to the table. The eligibility is maintained, and that's a big one. We wanted to create a system that allowed all young people to participate wherever they were at. So we didn't want to have a bunch of rules, a bunch of hoops that you had to jump through in order to have the support of the system, but rather really design a system that meets young people where they're at and provides them the help that they need to thrive, but also really encourages them to take advantage of the 3 years and to achieve as much as possible, because 3 years, as you all know, it's not a lot of time. And that development is supported, so challenges, pitfalls, experimentation are part of being a young adult, and we have to allow young people to make mistakes, to experiment, to have the experience that all of us had when we were 18 and 19, or some of you are having, as young adults. So that was sort of the framework that guided us in the process. I could spend 6 hours telling you about all the nitty. I mean, I have actually done conferences where I spend 6 hours telling people about the nitty-gritty rules of AB12, but I will just highlight some of the ways that we have approached these values in implementation, just some of the highlight provisions. So one is a mutual agreement. We said there needs to be an agreement when a youth turns 18 that sort of changes the dynamic of that relationship. So they come into care, or they're in care, and they're deciding, do I want to stay in care beyond the age of 18? And if they do, there's an agreement that they sign, but the agreement is actually intended to really tell them, these are your new rights and responsibilities as a young person participating in this program, and this is what you should also expect from the county, who is assisting you in your transition plan and in meeting your education or your work goals. And so it really is intended to give the youth a voice and to let them understand what it is that extended foster care is all about. And we spent a long time writing the mutual agreement and vetting it through many, many stakeholder meetings and with many youth in order to make sure that we were getting it right. But that was sort of like the linchpin, the key document that sort of starts this new relationship. Once in foster care, it changes because at age 18, youth actually now have to do something in order to participate in the foster care beyond the age of 18. So before you turn 18, if you're in foster care, you're just in foster care because you were removed from your home, you don't really have a choice in the matter, and you're in foster care no matter what you do. Really, you're in foster care because the court has your dependency case and is keeping you in foster care. That all changes when youth turn 18. Under extended foster care in AB12, youth have the right to opt out of foster care. They have the right to leave at any time. And it's an opt-out program, not an opt-in program, and that's important. It goes back to having eligibility maintained. We didn't want there to be a hoop that they had to jump through in order to continue in foster care at age 18. Actually, the court has to do something to close the foster care case, but if the youth says, I want you to close it, even if the court says, I don't think that's in your best interest, they have to close the case. So it is the youth's option to exit the system, and they have the right to do that at any time. They also have the right to come back into care again at any time after making that initial decision. So if 6 months down the road, they're realizing that, hey, it would be really great to have the support of the system, or I've hit a little roadblock, and it would be good to have some additional support for some period of time, they can come back into care and get support once again. And they can continue to make that decision to opt out and then to come back in all the way until they turn 21. There's no limits on the number of times that they can do it. While in care, they have to meet 1 of 5 participation requirements. So they have to be essentially working or going to school or doing an activity that removes barriers to employment, or unable to work or go to school or engage in one of those removing barriers to employment activities because of a medical condition, which includes mental health or medical reasons that they may not be able to participate for either a short period of time or for a long period of time. So the participation conditions were another big thing that we had to really discuss, because the feds told us you have to have these participation conditions, but they didn't tell us what it meant. They didn't tell us what it meant to be doing post-secondary education, or what it meant to be working 80 hours a month. Does that include unpaid or paid employment? Is it internships? What is it? What are you talking about when you say these things? So we had months and months of trying to figure out how to define these participation conditions in a way that would really engage young people and really help them get as much out of these 3 years in foster care as possible, but also not something that would leave anyone on the street. It wouldn't turn anyone away, that would provide a safety net for all young people.
So I'm Sonia Lenz-Rashid, and I'm an associate professor of social work at San Francisco State and co-founder of the Guardian Scholars Program with Sochi. And absolutely, we have been talking a lot about how AB12 is going to be affecting, we even saw, I think this year, just the movement of focusing on education for foster youth in K through 12, the intensity and improvement of services from the child welfare community we've really seen an increase over time of people that are applying to our program. So, we first got started, we had 13 students, we now have, 64 students in our program, and we saw a huge increase this fall of applicants. I'm not yelling, am I yelling? Okay. Usually I don't need a microphone. For us, I think the big question is sort of how the legislation will play out for a number of different reasons. One is, how are we engaging young people in this idea of staying in care? We at Guardian Scholars, we're a voluntary program. You come to San Francisco State, you have a history of foster care, you can choose to participate in our program or not. And a lot of young people hear about our program and want the things that we can offer, our clinical case management services, our scholarships, our summer rental stipends, our connections. We have a new career planning case manager who's working with our older students to help them really get ready. We know we'll graduate them, but can they get jobs? So we're working on that. But sort of, looking at the front end, how do we engage high school students that are in foster care into this idea of staying in care and how it can benefit them? And then from a higher ed perspective, how does that affect us? I imagine in the next few years, we're going to be seeing a lot more young people come from the community college system. We're going to see a massive increase in transfer students because of AB12, which is a great thing. But at our level, how do we manage that? Who do we decide to support in our program? How do we manage? I think the increase in numbers is going to be a big question for us. I also do a lot of research in the foster care system and work with a lot of child welfare workers, and just talking to child welfare workers in Alameda County and Contra Costa County. My husband's actually a child welfare worker in Contra Costa County, looking at this idea of how AB12 is even going to be sold, if you will, marketed to young people. This whole idea of deciding to not opt out. How do we get them to not opt out? How do we talk to them about that? How do we also talk to caregivers? How do we talk to foster parents? How do we talk to group home staff? How do we talk to kin placements about young people staying in care and why it's beneficial for them to stay in care? So I think, and right now, child welfare workers, and the all-county letter just came out a few weeks ago, or last week, but I think it's going to be a really big shift for a lot of counties. One other thing that comes up for me as I sort of do work with the child welfare community from a clinical standpoint is this question of each county having a different makeup. So, for instance, in Alameda County, they have a permanent youth connections unit. That unit works with young people that are older in foster care. In Contra Costa, they don't have that. In Contra Costa, you could be a child welfare worker and work with a kid who's 4 years old on your caseload and work with a kid who's 14. And you could have, for your 15 client caseload, have a whole mix. So how is it child welfares are going to become experts in AB12 and how they talk to young people and how they work on placements? There are some young people right now that, many young people say in Alameda County, 500 to 600 age out every year. What happens for those that are turning 18 that will actually qualify for AB12? What does it mean for them in terms of placements? Who's talking to the foster family agencies about it? And so I think we have a lot of great momentum, but there's still a lot of questions about how things are going to get rolled out. And from a higher ed perspective, how that's going to affect young people in a very positive way. My hope is that we're thoughtful about how we address it from a systems perspective. For instance, the community college perspective, transferring to the four-year universities. We're really excited about it, but we're also thinking about, in terms of how do we, and from higher ed perspective, how do we, be a part of the conversation? Can we be a placement for, a young person who's coming in as a first-time freshman who still wants to, stay within the foster care system, but wants to come to San Francisco State. So there are other questions, I think, that from a direct service standpoint that we're really starting to think about as this rolls out the coming year.
Thank you very much. I mean, maybe quickly, Angie, could you play off of what Sonia was just talking about there? That notion of, can a Guardian Scholars be a placement? Can, what is that definition of SILP, and how does that whole thing work in this mix?
Right, so another unique aspect of AB12 that I meant to mention was how we've expanded placement options for these young people. And like Daniel just mentioned, one of the new placement options is called Supervised Independent Living Placement, or a SILP, as we like to call it. And that includes pretty much anything you can think of, really. It could be university housing, it could be renting a room from a friend or a relative, it could be renting your own apartment, it could be living, in a roommate situation, any of those things. So yes, for sure, you can have Guardian Scholars providing housing to these young people, and those would be considered a SILP placement, and the youth that are in SILP placements are actually able to receive the foster care benefit themselves directly, or in some situations it might make more sense for it to go to another individual who helps manage their funding for them, or it just goes directly to paying rent or paying for university housing or something like that. So there's a lot of different ways that it could work. But
the main goal to me to get youth engaged in AB12 is to prevent homelessness, because that's the main issue for youth coming out of foster care at the age of 18. You have to worry about your plan A, your plan B, your plan C, how I'm going to survive in the streets of these urban communities, and also try to reach my full potentials in life, which is going to school, going to a community college, or going to a university. So that's really the main goal, is to prevent homelessness, and also to reach out to the youth so that they can reach their full potentials in life. With the support of AB12, I feel like every youth will most likely want to participate in AB12 so that they can feel like they will have their support system, because I know for me, graduating from high school and going on to college, I had my plan A, which is to move in the dorms. I didn't move in the dorms, but I did have the support of the San Francisco State Guardian Scholars Program. Even though I didn't stay in the dorms, I still took advantage of my case manager. I still took advantage of the director of the Guardian Scholars, and also the co-founder of the Guardian Scholars Program. They was there for me in the challenging times, and I think that's the most important thing, is to have that support system in these community colleges, and also in the communities such as ILSP and all of our other community-based organizations that's out here in different counties, to actually reach out to the youth in California, because it's so easy to become another statistic. It's so easy to become pregnant and not have that support system. And as a mother myself, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I was able to graduate at the age of 22 with the support of the Guardian Scholars Program. So I think just reaching out and letting them know the support of AB12, and letting them know that they are not alone, because that's the thing. Former foster youth have this mentality that they are alone and they don't have the support, because they is labeled as former foster youth, they are labeled as kids. So just change that whole terminology around to being young adults, and we're here not to label you as another former foster youth. We're here to label you as young adults, and here to work as a team and a support system. So I feel that AB12 will be a great benefit in California come January 1st, 2012, from someone that did have to live on my own from the age 17 to now. So, and I'm very successful. So I'm very happy that the younger generations do have the support system with California agencies such as Berkeley and San Francisco State, and all the community-based organizations with the foster youth system being involved, such as the Foster Youth Alliance, and the list go on and on with the support system of former foster youth. So I really appreciate this new law that's coming out in January 2012.
Barbara, real quick. I don't mean to get in the way of the applause. I mean, we could go on, you know, for quite a while. You're really breaking it down pretty good. So, what do you think? You know, you had the benefit clearly of Guardian Scholars, right? And that was a whole lot of love from a number of people. That's my basic impression, having seen it from the outside. I wasn't lucky enough to be a Guardian Scholar, but you know, sounds good to a certain degree. So, what could you kind of? What do you think? You know, that new group of social workers are going to be working past the age of 18, 19, can learn from the people that are doing it already to a certain degree. I mean, you know, doing it around education and post-secondary education. But what is the lesson to be learned from those folks like Sochi and Sonia and the rest?
Can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, just what's a lesson for social workers, and we're in a school of social welfare, what's the lesson to be learned from the supports you got in your post-secondary education?
I think it's very important for the child welfare workers to collaborate with the directors of the Guardian Scholars Program and all these programs that's actually here to support former foster youth, to actually tell, I guess the most important thing for me is to have the directors in these community college, also these higher education such as the universities such as Berkeley and San Francisco State, to inform the child welfare workers of the programs once former foster youth become part of the higher education system. And just telling them we have A through Z to actually help you succeed in college, because it's hard to try to balance out trying to survive in college again, but then with this new AB12 law, they're going to actually be able to stay in their placement. They're going to actually have the opportunity to have this permanent connection and also have the child welfare workers actually working with the youth. So I will just strongly suggest that the child welfare workers and the directors over these programs actually collaborate more together to put the word out there about these services and programs with going into college.
Great, thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you. Shanita, you're currently at the School of Social Welfare, correct? So maybe you could grab the mic and talk about, you know, what you are doing with this higher education degree and what you plan to do to kind of contribute to, if anything, to the kind of the continuation of this movement and ensuring that students coming up have all the benefits of AB12 and post-secondary education, those things that you are, you know, on your way to being in a very small percentage, unfortunately, of youth who get you know, not only post-secondary education but also, you know, graduate degrees and PhDs and all those other things. So if you could help us out with that, that'd be great.
Okay. Hi, I'm Shanita. Yeah, so my major here is social welfare. Aside from being a student and being a former foster youth, I am a foster parent to my 4 siblings at home now. And so when I heard about AB12 and, you know, all the opportunities that it offered, it kind of made me think about what individual would be eligible. The questions was raised, who wants to stay in foster care anyway? I know when I emancipated out, I was ready to go. I was fortunate enough to be in a kinship placement, so I had that family stability. To come through ILSP, to go through, therapy sessions, and to have, I worked 3 jobs in high school, so, I had that go-getter mentality, even, struggling with personal circumstances and what have you. And so I think that when it comes to, like Barbara said, when it comes to encouraging youth, about whether they want to stay in foster care, whether, how are they going to be eligible? And someone tells me, and what I learned from somebody is like, it's always about the character. And I worked with, when I was in high school, I was a peer advocate for a violence prevention program. And, I talked to 6th graders who were raped, molested, abused, shot guns, been shot, seen people die, all these sorts of things. And, to sit there with a curriculum and try to teach them about violence prevention, it was kind of like impossible. Because they're like, how can you step into my everyday life and then try to tell me, why shouldn't I carry a gun and, what have you. And so I think it's the same way when it comes to foster youth. You know, they want to know, who are you? You know, what is out there for me? And like I said, I was a different case. I didn't have a social worker. When I did have a social worker, I don't know what happened. I guess everybody has those kind of stories. And so I was kind of like, I just cut it off. I'm like, no, I don't care about social workers. You know, I'm just going to continue ILSP, and you know, whoever else can bear me. And so I think when it comes to things like that, especially, I think my main focus, like I said, is not so much about people like me who had stable situations, kind of, but those who don't. You know, I met a homeless individual yesterday. You know, he came to my church. I didn't even know we graduated together. He was homeless, and he was only 21 years old. And it's like, oh, you know, you can go here. We were throwing out all these resources, and he was just kind of like, no, you know, take me back to the street where you found me. And it was kind of like, you know, why? Why do you want to do that? And so I think it's the same way for, you know, high school students coming out, especially those who don't have, you know, they might not have go-getter personalities or whatever it may be. And so I think it comes to that, social workers and directors and mentors, you have to work to kind of encourage these students, encourage these foster youth to kind of want to be somebody. You know, especially like I said, for my brothers and sisters, you know, I have no worries. Nothing against AB12, but it's like I have no worries because I know that they're going to get enough from me to be able to say, okay, you know, because I see my sister do it, I'm going to go into secondary education and vocational school, whatever they want to do. But I think, you know, I never came out of a group home, or, you know, I wasn't placed several times like other individuals have been. And so, but I can understand that kind of sense of instability, and that instability kind of follows you. And so I would be interested in finding out and, you know, wanting to know how effective AB12 will be, you know, when it comes to, you know, group homes and those kind of like, I don't want to offend them, but, you know, the tough ones, you know, because that's my personal fear, you know, worry, are the tough ones.
You know, I would like to open up the floor to questions because we got a lot of folks here, but you know, I mean, Angie, before we get into that quickly, you're on the front line in my estimation of how you try to write rules around things like troubled and troubling. So what kind of considerations are out there?
Well, so we're very aware of Dr. Courtney's research in the 4 subcategories of youth, and I think going back, even in Illinois, it's important to remember they've done extended foster care for a long time, but they haven't really changed foster care at age 18. They did what most other states that extended foster care prior to the federal act did, which is with their own state dollars, they were providing support to young people beyond the age of 18. And in Illinois' case, it was up to 21. But the new Federal Fostering Connections to Success Act did a couple of things. It gave the states the opportunity to have federal money to do it, but it also changed some of the rules that apply to these young people. So it imposed those participation conditions, like a young person has to be in school or working or removing barriers to employment. And the federal guidance that was released really said to states, be creative, find ways to support these young people, treat these young people as adults, you know, change the nature of foster care. And I've talked to folks at the National Resource Center for Youth Aging Out or something. It's National Resource Center for something, but now I forget what they're called. I forget the end of the title. But anyways, they've been doing a study of the 50 states to try to see where everyone is with extending foster care and how many states have taken up the federal option to extend foster care, and then what do those new state policies look like. And in talking to the woman who conducted the study, she told me California is the only state that's really trying to change the nature of foster care, that's really tackling the problem of how you design a young system for adults that creates a safety net that meets young people where they're at, that takes really into account young people that are coming out of group homes, that have had multiple placements, that need additional levels of supports and services, and what does that look like, and what does our system need to do in order to accommodate those young people, and what do those policies look like? Even more important, what do those practices look like? Because a lot of this is stuff you can't legislate. A lot of it is stuff you can't put into a policy and tell everyone how to do it, because these are individual types of decisions that deal with the individual lives of young people. And so I'm looking at Barry Johnson in the back of the room. At CalSWEC, we've had a whole bunch of time over the last few months really thinking about how are we going to train on AB12? How are we going to take all of this stuff, all of these values, all of these principles, and really tell social workers and eligibility workers and ILP coordinators and caregivers and youth themselves what all of these new things mean and how to really work with these different populations of people. And we have this very comprehensive plan that we're developing to try to train everyone in the state as part of the child welfare system on how to really make AB12, to realize the promise of AB12. So is any of this going to work? I have no idea. But I think our efforts in California and the massive amount of work that we've done to really think through these problems and to try to create a new system, and a system that's really designed with adults in mind, is promising. And I think that the number of people that are committed to this project and to this work, as evidenced by the number of people in this room right now, and I can tell you, we've gone around the state and talked to thousands of people that are interested in AB12 in the last year. That's all very promising. I think that we really have an opportunity in California to pave the way and to teach other states how to do this right. I didn't really answer your question.
No, but no, you did. You tried. I mean, it's so nebulous and so difficult that, how are you gonna, but this is the great challenge that California faces now, is how to really deal with the beautiful challenge that's put in front of it. I mean, these are how you try to do really major things. So it's pretty incredible. Barbara, sure.
From personal experience, I feel like we need more youth involved, more youth voice, because in reality, former foster youth, they don't want to talk to social workers. They want to talk to somebody that can identify with them, that can relate to them, to actually put the word out there. Not saying that I'm not knocking the directors or the child welfare workers, because you all are here to support us, but in the midst of it all, we need more young, successful adults like myself and Sunita and Soko Mal to actually go out there and advocate the importance of having AB12 and taking advantage, because talking to a social worker is like talking to a therapist. You don't really want to talk to them. It's like, okay, you guys know what I done been through. Y'all know my circumstances. Who can really help me? So if I know for myself, every time I talk to a youth, it's like, okay, I recently graduated, and tell them a little bit about myself and letting them know that I identify with them. It's kind of like, oh wow, you're so different from the social workers, because we're youth. We have that youth voice, we have that youth mentality, and we have our youth story behind our success. So
I just want to say thank you for having this forum. I think this is really important for us to start a great conversation and to maybe move forward with some wonderful change for the foster care system in California. And so I'm super excited to see the outcomes down the road, and to know that there are opportunities for young people that before January were not there, and we see it in lots of other states. The outcomes are much better for young people that choose to stay in care than those who don't. So I'm very excited about it. Thank you so much. And I also am a grad of Cal's PhD in social work. So she is also a grad of Cal undergrad.
So I have to say that I do agree with Sonia to the maximum extent, to like what happened to the youth that's not like us. Like we're very successful because we have self-confidence, we have self-motivation, we have self-determination. But what happened to the youth that don't have these skills? What happened to the youth that do not have any employment skills because they spend most of their childhood in the criminal justice system? And they don't have the sufficiency skills because no one is teaching them these important skills, and they haven't participated in ILSP, and they don't want to participate in AB12 for whatever reason because they're just fed up with the systems. And from my understanding, that TH Plus is not offered to the youth that's not exiting out of group homes. So these new laws that's coming out that's eliminating the program that was offered to us once upon a time, which was THP Plus. And again, I was in kinship, so I was entitled to THP Plus. But what happened to these youth that's gonna eventually become homeless because they don't want to participate in AB12 and they don't have the family and they don't have the support? So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Shanita?
Just to piggyback on what Barbara said, you know, I think everybody, child welfare workers, and just everybody should get ready for, you know, I don't want to call them the rejects, but it's, you know, it's kind of, that's just how it is. And so, yeah, and so, and you know, and for all aspiring social workers, you know, just get ready. Just get ready. It's like, you know, when an earthquake happens, you need to have your water, your flashlights, and, you know, and dealing with foster care, it's that same situation, because I think, you know, foster care youth, they get pushed into the shadows. Everybody get looked at through the same light. You need help, and this, that, and the other, and you know, I just think it just needs to be a better momentum, because I didn't know about AB12 until a couple months ago, you know, and so, you know, who knows how to interpret this? Who knows, you know, what will be the outcome? Is there a pie at the end of the rainbow for them? And so I think there just needs to be a lot of resources and a lot of options.
All right, thank you, Shanita.
I would say that those of us who have spent the last 3 years writing the statutes and the policies are now about to turn it over to everyone who has to implement these rules, and it's going to require a real partnership. It's going to require really going to trainings and understanding everything, all the new opportunities, all the new options, how to be creative and taking advantage of new funding sources and new policies, new rights, new opportunities, how to work with other counties in order to serve these young people. It's a hard thing to sort of transfer everything that we've sort of thought up of in these conference rooms to the practitioners on the ground, but that's what's really necessary at this stage. I think we've got a really good program, but we need to partner with the folks that are going to be implementing that program in order to really make it a reality. So
thank you so much, Angie. And can we do a big round of applause for our panelists?